Today, Russia reels from another major terror attack, Israel prepares to redeploy its forces to the Lebanese border, and Macron's alliance continues to struggle with just a week until France's snap elections. From TLDR News, this is your daily briefing for Monday, the 24th of June, 2024. A major armed attack in Russia's southern republic of Dagestan has killed more than 15 police officers and several civilians, including an Orthodox priest. The simultaneous attacks occurred across the cities of Makhachkala and Derbent and targeted two Orthodox churches, a synagogue, and a police post, authorities have said. A counter-terrorist operation was announced in the region, and Russia's anti-terrorist committee said 5 gunmen were eliminated, while the region's governor said 6 bandits have been liquidated. So it's currently unclear exactly how many people were involved in the attacks. The exact death toll also remains unclear, with more than 15 police officers reportedly being killed, and an unknown number of civilians among the dead too. 3 days of mourning have been declared in the region. At time of writing, there's been no claim of responsibility for the attacks. However, Dagestan's governor has said, "We understand who's behind the organization of the terrorist attacks and what goal they pursued," without providing a name. Russia's state news agency, however, cited law enforcement agencies as saying that the gunmen were, quote, adherents of an international terrorist organization. The attacks in Dagestan come 3 months after an attack claimed by the so-called Islamic State killed 145 people at a concert hall near Moscow. The predominantly Muslim Republic of Dagestan sits between Chechnya on one side and the Caspian Sea on the other, in the volatile North Caucasus region, which has a history of separatist and militant violence. Recent geopolitical events have fanned unrest in the area. For example, Russia's invasion of Ukraine and mobilization of citizens into the military disproportionately has affected ethnic minorities and sparked protests in 2022. More recently, in October last year, hundreds of people stormed the airport in the Dagestani capital Makhachkala in search of Jewish passengers arriving on a plane from Israel. Sunday's attacks show that beyond the war in Ukraine, Russia faces other significant security challenges, like international and domestic terrorism and interreligious violence that have been bubbling while authorities have been focusing attention and resources on Ukraine. Now, there's more on the way, but remember to subscribe and ring the bell for more daily briefing tomorrow. Plus, if you want to support the channel like Dr. Giulia Ambrosini, then consider joining the new TLDR membership program for just $1.99. In an interview with Israel's Channel 14 last night, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced that intense fighting in Gaza is nearing an end, and that the Israeli military is preparing to redistribute its forces to Israel's northern border with Lebanon, where trading of near-daily fire between Israel and the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah has intensified in recent weeks. Netanyahu has said that deploying forces to its northern border is both a defensive move and a move which will allow the roughly 60,000 Israelis who were evacuated from northern Israel since the start of the war in Gaza to return home. Netanyahu said he hoped a full-blown war with Hezbollah, one of the world's most heavily armed non-state actors, could be averted, but he said that Israel would meet this challenge of fighting on multiple fronts if needed. Netanyahu further insisted that Israel switching to a low-intensity conflict in Gaza does not mean that Israel has abandoned its war there, and that it would continue until it has completely destroyed Hamas and freed the roughly 120 hostages the militant group still holds. Now over to France, where Marine Le Pen's far-right National Rally is leading in opinion polls a week before the country's first round of voting for the snap parliamentary elections. After a crushing defeat for his party in the European Parliament elections, France's President Emmanuel Macron called for a snap legislative vote to take place on June 30th and July 7th. Now, recent opinion polls don't actually favour Macron's alliance, with the latest survey showing that National Rally is polling at 36%, the pan-left-wing New Popular Front alliance at 27%, and Macron's alliance trailing behind with 20%. In another Ipsos poll published on Sunday, Macron's approval rating fell by 4 percentage points to 28%. Now, when it comes to the economy, polls also suggest that voters trust Le Pen's party the most to manage the economy, despite its lack of government experience. Currently, steep projections also show the National Rally gaining a significant lead, but most predict that Le Pen will not secure an absolute majority of 289 seats, with estimates for her party ranging between 250 and 280 seats. However, one projection does indicate that National Rally has a chance of achieving an outright majority. Now, Le Pen says that if elected, the National Rally would drastically reduce legal and illegal immigration, lower VAT, and allowed those who started working at the age of 20 to retire at 60. It has previously also argued against Ukraine joining either NATO or the EU. Now, if you want to learn more about what the National Rally, Macron's Ensemble Alliance, and the Popular Front are offering France, then head over to TLDR EU and check out our recent video where we compared the manifestos of these three big parties. More than 1,300 people have died during the Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca amid extreme high temperatures, according to Saudi authorities. The Saudi health minister has said that 83% of the 1,300 deaths were unauthorized pilgrims who walked long distances under direct sunlight without adequate shelter or comfort, adding that among the deceased were several elderly and chronically ill individuals. This year, the pilgrimage, which is an annual event, saw 1.8 million pilgrims head to Islam's holiest site in Mecca. But temperatures in the city soared to 51.8 degrees Celsius last week, contributing to the significant death toll. Saudi health services treated nearly 500,000 pilgrims. Among them were 141,000 who didn't have official authorization to perform Hajj. Despite criticism of management of the pilgrimage by Saudi authorities and the high death toll, the health ministry hailed the, quote, successful execution of health management efforts, adding that there was no recorded outbreaks of epidemics or widespread diseases. Now, it's worth pointing out that extreme summer heat is not new to Saudi Arabia, and neither are mass fatality events. For example, a crowd crash in 2015 killed more than 2,000 people in Mecca. However, several studies have highlighted the danger posed by global warming. A 2019 study projected that heat stress during the Hajj pilgrimage would reach extreme danger levels this century, and a more recent study found that over the past 4 decades, Saudi Arabia has warmed up at a rate that is 50% higher than the rest of the Northern Hemisphere. And finally, in some uplifting news, Namibia's High Court has overturned a law that criminalized gay sex, providing a victory for LGBTQ+ campaigners in the southern African country. The law, which banned so-called unnatural offences including sodomy, was inherited upon gaining independence from South Africa in 1990. Activists and campaigners say that while the law was pretty rarely enforced, it had contributed to discrimination against LGBTQ+ people by other civilians as well as police. Fridel Dowsub, who brought the case, said, because of this decision, I no longer feel like a criminal on the run in my own country simply because of who I am. Now, before we finish today's briefing, I wanted to quickly tell you about the project we're working on called Too Long. Too Long is our new physical magazine that we will be releasing 3 times a year, running you through all of the key news events in more detail, and sometimes more intelligently than is possible on YouTube, with us able to choose the topics we think truly matter most and taking the time necessary to explain them, rather than being constrained by algorithms or click-through rates like we are on YouTube. Now, it's worth clarifying, this really is a serious, high-quality magazine we're printing, full of interesting journalism with graphics to bring the stories to life. The first edition we're working on is our UK election special, so it'll run through the results of the election and discuss how the victors plan to rebuild Britain in a number of key policy areas. And the other half of the paper is dedicated to news around the world, including the European elections, France's snap election, Hungary's upcoming EU presidency, the ongoing wars in Ukraine and Gaza, the tensions between US and China, and Japan's polycrisis, and of course, the US election. So if you are interested and want to support the channel, we'd really appreciate you considering picking up a copy. Click the link in the description to learn more. Plus, if you use TLDR Daily, you'll get £2 off any order. Thank you for your support, and thanks for watching the Daily Briefing.